Hello, my name is Odrek Rwabwogo and I work at the Tomosi Group as a business trainer and strategy support officer. I welcome you all to our podcast. The Tomosi Group is a medium-sized business involved in agriculture, security, communication, and real estate, employing directly slightly over 400 people. Our biggest challenge in the last 21 years has been raising a skilled and reliable human capital to support growth. It is a challenge almost every business in Africa faces. This podcast is meant to help our officers and teams learn and improve their skill at work. It will also help hundreds of young people we speak to across Uganda in support of their enterprise growth. The podcast covers topics such as finance, sales, marketing, communication, and many more. This podcast is supported by the Tomosi Foundation, our community giving arm. Enjoy. Hello, I welcome you all to our third podcast on the topic of sales. And our subtopic today, or the theme today, is the tactics to close a sale. I thank those who gave their compliments for both the first and second podcast. It means they are listening in and they are trying to reflect on what they have heard. Please take care to listen to each of these podcasts because they make a thread. It won't make sense to jump into one when you haven't listened to the previous one. You will not get the full meaning. Your lessons will be like the proverbial story from India, which we know very well, where elephants traditionally were used for transport and war. We are told in that parable that 4 blind men, in the story, one whose hand landed on the trunk said the elephant is like a thick snake. One whose hand touched the ear thought an elephant was as huge as a fan. While another one whose hand touched the leg said the elephant is like a tree trunk. While the one whose hand touched the side thought an elephant was like a huge wall. The allegory in this story is about where good communication is found wanting, many interpretations and misunderstanding of an issue are generated. The story also teaches us that there are many perspectives to something, but you will gravely miss out on a larger picture if you simply pick those areas or angles that are convenient for you. Let me tell you something, convenience is always the enemy of hard work and growth. Please follow the chain of these podcasts. Now, to you who raised questions, someone said that you will be rejected by the customers when they perceive you as a salesperson. While there may be cases of this nature with customers, it means you, the seller, has done very little or no investigation on all the 4 levels that we went through, especially the preliminary stage we spoke about, and which many of you said was important to you. If you are worried of being rejected on account of being thought of as a salesperson, it means you have not done very good background research about the customer before the call is made, or when you are given a chance, you fail to uncover their critical needs and you are rushing or moving on to the commitment stage. Customers don't always chase away those who they have found understanding of their needs. I'm talking about customer needs and who are willing to provide solutions. They instead want to listen more and compare with, they're willing to listen more and compare with whoever else they have heard from before they can commit. Let me also warn you that every action you take when you wake up daily and God has given you another day to live, you are selling. Either you are demonstrating your capabilities by your attitude, by your behavior to someone to hire you or take your service, or you are giving someone a negative version of yourself and you are inviting a sack or losing customers. Rejection, therefore, is part of this daily living, and how we manage it does not include hiding away from reality just because you'll be perceived to be a salesperson. You confront reality. That's the only way you grow. Those of you who made comments on the method of training, I thank you because you are asking for images, pictures, more channels. Hey, you are telling our content design and distribution team to improve their performance. And I hope as people selling something to you, they are clearly listening to this need you have expressed. It means they are not fully meeting those needs according to you. Now, this morning, our topic is on how to close a sale. Remember, we went through the 4 steps to making a sales call. We went through the 4 sets of questions to ask so that you are able to unveil and meet the needs of the customer. Today we want to speak about how to obtain commitment from a customer. What to avoid, what actions to look out for. But first things first, I want you to learn a new word. I'm excited about this word because I first met the word in 2008 and it helped me realign my approach to learning, so I'm excited to share it with you. The word is entelechy. Entelechy, spelled as E-N-T-E-L-E-C-H-Y. The word comes from two Greek words. One is telos, which means a goal. The other one is eikin, which means sort of to have something. Many of you who I have worked with know that I love background to things. This is because people who focus on consequences of things miss the big underlying message. The example of this is that we have several times lost equipment. This is just a recent example at our office. We've lost equipment to power surges at our office, including now in the lockdown. The solution that has been proposed to us has been install a power surge protector. Well, this is good, but is this a permanent solution? Would we not do well to investigate the age of the building? The cables laid over in the last 60 years, from the power transformer outside, the earthing, all the way to the sockets in our building. Now, the lack of wanting to do things that solve our long-term problems and give us a level of sustained growth is not restricted to us at Tomosi Group. It seems it's a Ugandan problem. Seems maybe an African problem. You know, I have met people who say, you build in a road reserve simply because munange tomanya government eyinza okuyisa wano oluguudo nekusasula. Which in English, those of you who understand Luganda, translated it says, you never know. If I build in this road reserve, government may pay me one day when they build a road. Now, this attitude seems to pervade our behavior. Anyhow, when we know the underlying problem, this is the point I'm trying to make, it becomes easier to find lasting solutions, even if they are hard to execute. But we know the disease, and thus we try to find a medicine. So, entelechy, whose soil is setting a goal and having something achieved, means a realization of or the actuality to a potentiality. Well, I hope I'm not making things difficult. Summarized really, simply, it means your potential realized. This is that you get a full use of these studies, I'm using this word so that you get the full use of these studies, for example, by practicing them regularly. You must try and fail. Try again, fail. Try until you get to use these methods we have spoken about over the last 3 weeks so that they serve us as a company, as a country, better than we have done in the past with our usual methods. Now, this is true practice that I'm describing. Entelechy runs on true practice. And true practice runs on another word called persistence. You know, something feels awkward the first time you do it, but when you persist, it works. Now, does anyone among you remember my favorite story of Captain Chesley Sullenberger? He's called Captain Sally in short. He landed an aircraft, Flight 1549, in January of 2009 on the Hudson River near New York, near Manhattan, with all the 155 passengers on board safe. Captain Sally had been flying for over 30 years, but he wasn't specially trained for landing on water, even this particular type of crisis. His aircraft simply lost all engines mid-air on account of a double strike of birds, and he had to perform landing maneuvers, which are usually done at 15,000 feet. He had to do them at 3,000 feet to avoid crashing into buildings. Let me ask you, had he prepared for this accident? Not specifically. Had he tried all sorts of precautions, thought of all scenarios in that critical span of a moment, bringing all the various experiences over the years into this one singular moment? A huge yes. Therefore, all of us, whether we are accountants, auditors, engineers like at TFC, designers and communicators at TAP, farm people producing mangoes and milk, all of us must study and practice what we are learning. Why? This is because the world continues to change, and in this change it welcomes those who are truly rounded, who can perform across multiple layers of knowledge, who can apply information in a critical business way, right when circumstances call upon them. This is in no way to take away your specialization in certain areas, but it is to move you into the unknown so that we all can grow together. Now, the writers Chrissy and Kaplan, who wrote in the 1960s, because I find books of 30, 40 years ago a little stronger, I think I could say even honest, because they're trying to solve a problem, they're not trying to make money, quite often like our writers and publishers of today. These two writers from the 1960s, they define closing a sale, and I quote, as the tactics a salesman uses to induce purchase or acceptance of the proposition. I repeat, open quote, the tactics a salesman uses to induce purchase or acceptance of the proposition. Close quote. Let me go straight to how you close a sale. To close a sale, you need initially 4 things. Listen to me carefully. The first one is that what you choose to start with in your communication to the customer must be so well planned because it influences their view of what comes next. Your words can be timed to push the customer to rejection or acceptance. You must therefore plan ahead given the investigation you have made. Remember, if you have not listened to the first and the second podcast, you will get lost in this one. You must plan ahead given the investigation stage and what you did. You try as much as you can to make your audience, this customer in front of you that you are speaking to, make them sympathetic to your message. One of my favorite, sales gurus is called Robert Cialdini or Cialdini. Robert Cialdini wrote a book and he calls it Persuasion. And he says that for you to ensure that your messages are accepted to the buyer, put him in the frame of mind so that your messages land very well. Now, I'm not sure some of you, those of you who listened anyway, remember my example of the research I was doing many years ago as a reporter, 1996, and the fellow who was so upset with me that he asked me to leave. Now, looking back, perhaps I bombarded this man with questions without seeing whether there were primers on his face. Primers are the kind of things that tell you the mental frame of someone before you talk to them. What was he drinking? And what might be the reason that he was drinking what he was drinking at the time he was drinking it? What time of day was it for these questions on a holiday that the country was going through? If I had gone through my mind, preparing myself for this would have clearly given me an opportunity to soften the ground for my message to that man, and perhaps he would have been receptive. You know what? I might have missed something because I was rushing to file a story as a young man before 11 a.m. so that I could, who knows, lead the next day on the newspaper. So, listen, my deadline became more important than the problem of this customer, so I did not uncover his needs. I ask you, what is driving you and stopping you from thorough planning before a sales call? I hope this session helps you to find out that. Number 2 emerges from number 1. It emerges from what you start with. Number 2, you need to create a level of trust so that it enhances the customer's compliance faster and better to what you're saying. Trust has to be planted before the sales process. How? By being conscious of the questions such as, who are you and what do you know about this customer? What referrals do you have about him and from who? What have you done in the industry to allow you to be heard by this customer? Questions like this will help you to begin a process of how to establish trust in the mind of the person you're about to meet. Please remember that the mind is a dense network of neural associations that spark immediately, causing connectivity whenever something similar is presented to us. It is that circuit connectivity that builds fear or love or hate or rejection. Therefore, take time to build trust before you head into closing a transaction. Number 3. Please be conscious of timing. Some things are sold to certain people when they are in certain mood or season. Some people do not have a consistent attitude to things. They might have mood swings or purchasing patterns unknown to you. They are not like you, who is probably fortunate to be the same from January to December. Well, if you are that type. This awareness of timing gives you what is called the privileged moment with a customer. A privileged moment is when an individual is receptive to hear certain things. One day I went to sell some consulting service to the Joint Clinical Research Center when they were still in Mengo years ago. I think it was in the early 2000s. I went with someone who had convinced me that they are friends of the manager. I was excited. But no sooner had we started speaking than the manager stopped us, saying, I quote, please, this isn't the time for me to even think about your solution, close quote. Well, had we done enough due diligence about this institution? No. Had I inquired more about the relationship between my contact and the manager? No. I was young and I simply assumed all was well because I was told, you know what, that these two people come from the same place in the country, which is an extremely lousy assumption many of our people make, I guess because sometimes in a tribalized society, people tend to make these assumptions. Look, we might look alike, but we're inherently different in perception and in our actions. Looks don't justify buying behavior or attitude. Do you remember the biblical story of Queen Esther and the ancient Persian king Xerxes? It is a good example of great timing. Go read the story in the book of Esther. The rule in those days was that if you got into the king's presence without being called, he would order your death. But Esther took time. She made herself ready. She followed the advice of her uncle Mordecai, who had seen these things come and go and had some experience. She prayed through the situation. In other words, Esther did the planning and investigation of circumstances and acted right time in a forthright manner. Now let me tell you something. Waiting on timing is not the same as procrastination. No. Please don't rationalize and justify procrastination by saying, I'm waiting. No. Timing is being conscious of how to land your message very well. All of us have moments when we have elevated attention. That's another beautiful word, elevated attention to something. And this is the moment that a good salesperson looks for to hone in the message home and close a sale. Now, people who read the Bible, they do something regularly, they understand what I mean by elevated attention. They have a particular hour of the day, say when they exercise or do something, they give attention. They give elevated attention to that hour. When they miss that timing, it just doesn't work very well. Now, let me tell you, what we give attention, we increase its importance in our lives. My question is this: can you find ways to increase the attention of the prospective customer to what you are selling to them? Think about that. Number 4. The mind looks for confirmation of what it knows first before it travels into the unknown. You trying to sell something to me starts with, what do I know about you and what do you know about my need? Our youngest daughter, who is 5 years old, taught me this pretty well 2 days ago. Her mother drew an X for her in the middle of her picture book, and then her mother turned a fresh page and asked her to draw the same X again. Our daughter instead drew 2 connecting triangles with their bottoms facing left and right, or east and west. She still got the X letter, but she approached it differently. She approached it from what she knew to draw. She knows to draw shapes, and therefore her X is a shape, not a letter. Let me tell you, everybody tends to do this in life. People approach life from their experience, and if you can't first get them to mentally confirm before introducing something new, you miss the opportunity. Let's go back to the categorization of sales we began with in our first session. We said some transactions are small, like buying bread, replacing a car battery, buying milk. Those we do not need special skills to close a sale. This is because the risk is low to both you, the seller, and the buyer. Sometimes, even a little pressure can work in small sales. I suppose when I say this, you can go back to a time when you bought something that you really didn't need, but because the seller applied pressure, and since you wanted peace with them, so you can proceed with what you're doing, and you didn't even to spend 500,000 to get it, well, it's not expensive, it's 50,000, it's 10,000, you simply paid and you moved on. But in larger transactions, which I think we are speaking about if we want to grow in sales, it is completely different. If you, for example, apply pressure, you are so unprofessional, you turn off people, and you will not benefit from a long-term relationship, even if you win the first round. In larger transactions, there will be many people you need to convince, thus there will be many calls to make on this customer. The idea, therefore, is to spend time setting the key objectives you want to achieve before the call ahead of the commitment you are looking for. In large sales call, which is where we have a lot of problems in our teams because we seem to depend on others to sell for us, you might have no sale, but also you have no outright rejection. I have been in this situation so many times. You fall somewhere in a strange place called in between or no man's land, and it can be tiresome and confusing. There are 4 positions I want to take you through in these larger sales. Remember, I'm really stopping at 4s since we started sale. I just say 4 items so that at least you can carry 2 if you forget all the 4. So there are 4 positions that are in a larger sale. The first is the simple one. 1, the order is made. The customer makes a clear commitment to buy your product. But let me warn you, don't take it lightly, even if they tell you, we have 100% commitment to buy from you. Always, always, always. They must sign some paperwork to commit, and you carry this to the office so that you can start the execution process. Words are not enough with customers. There has to be commitment in writing. Number 2, it is called advance position. It's almost like advance, like how the army is advancing on a certain objective. They want to attack a certain enemy on a certain hill. They are advancing from point A to B. It's the same here. This is when an event takes place in the call or after, but it moves the sale process to another level. One of the examples is that you made this presentation and they clear you to meet the head of the institution. You're going to see the boss. In other words, they're giving you access to a decision maker. That's advancing. Or they ask for a demonstration from your team, or they want to send someone to check on your processes at the office and how you deliver. That's all advance. You are not held in one position, you are advancing. These are not a sale closed, but they are advanced to another level and they need firm and consistent follow-up with very good communication infrastructure and people in a business. Position number 3, it's called continuation position. This is the worst in my opinion for a seller, and I know this from my own experience. Once a major retailer in our country who we wanted to partner with to distribute milk, it's the owner of this distribution agency is a friend. The friend, when we met, sounded very upbeat. We met many times. We spoke on phone. He even had a larger vision for this partnership beyond what I came asking for. He asked us to see the manager to carry these conversations forward. The manager didn't say no, but the manager never committed. He never visited our operation as he had been asked. Our own manager followed up closely until the grass grew under his feet, to use the term, and we abandoned the chase altogether. It looked good from the start, every bit, but it never yielded anything. I've been thinking maybe I need to review this in future to see if we are the ones who didn't approach this with good information from the start. The second example I can give you is recently government parastatal that sounded all good with our work, asking us for paperwork, for books, for presentations. We made a pitch, we carried our own facilities, which they did not have. They used our facilities. Even they allowed the competition to use our facilities. In the middle of the pitch, I was getting compliments like, whoa, this is fantastic. We are impressed by your approach to this work. You've rewritten the terms of reference. I even said halfway the pitch, I said, can we sign? Basically asking to close, since it all looked very nice. But I had this strange feeling. When we were entering the premises, I noticed some telltale signs. The chairman of the board dodged me and he took off. I had seen him. I don't think he saw me. Remember my eye, which picks people at a distance? I discussed last week. He dodged me and took off, but he had attended other people's presentations. He had been in the competitor's presentation. Previously, I had met the leaders of this same parastatal in China. I was on my own roadshow at our own company's cost promoting what this institution does, but not, in a private sector way. I don't want to use the word clumsy. But they were not reaching the key customers who they should have reached because they don't have that experience as government officials. When we met in this foreign country, I was puzzled. They didn't even ask what we were doing and how we were doing it. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on this. In the end, I found out that we were fooled by these compliments and empty noises and posturing, and we lost time and we lost money. I learned from then that some of the clients you must follow only those where you feel strongly there is a position to advance to, not where there are fake and shallow platitudes that waste time and energy. Number 4 is a very clear one. The no-sell position. The customer actively rejects your proposal and does not tell you why, but he or she doesn't waste his or your time. In this situation, you must continuously investigate the needs of this customer because you might have to return at some stage. It could be any number of issues you did not explore at a planning stage. Now, let me conclude this segment again with 4 steps to obtain a commitment, a successful action, which we all look for when we are selling. Number 1, I want to ask you to give more attention to the investigating and demonstration of capability stage in the sales call. These 2 stages will help you, the seller, uncover, understand, and develop the needs of a customer, especially in a larger sales call. I shared with you last week that good questions reveal to people what is important to them, and therefore they themselves bring out the needs and they can even close for you. Good questions help you close better and faster. Number 2 of the things that you must look out for as successful action in obtaining commitment. Number 2, you must check that a customer's key concerns have been covered in the call. Amateur sellers, and again I like this word amateur because originally in Greek it meant someone who does a thing simply because they enjoy it and they are not necessarily paid for it. I find that this is how I do many of my things. I just love to teach, I love to write, I love to help, I love to think through opportunities and possibilities. I like to enlarge my mind by reading all sorts of things, everything and anything. In the process, these things become business, or they become ideas that eventually pay me. But in this sense, I'm talking about the word amateurism or amateur behavior, which means something different today. It means that someone is young at what they are doing, they don't understand. So amateurs in selling like to rush customers to close before they have covered the major implicit and explicit needs. Please be careful to not jump to conclusions. Take time and uncover all the needs. Number 3, always summarize the benefits of your solution to the customer. It is key that you don't rush to close without reminding the customer what is in for them in the first place. What is in for them. A sales call might take many stages. It goes through many levels that people forget initially what they were looking for, what they were bargaining for. Circumstances change. Therefore, always remind and summarize the key points. Number 4 and final one, please don't forget, these are the last successful steps. The steps you take in trying to obtain commitment that give you successful action. Number 4, please propose a commitment, you the seller. Do not wait for the customer to tell you when they want to commit. Signal the closure with guiding the customer on the nature and type of commitment required. Some customers might not even know the how of closing. Help them take the next step. In all this, closing should not be simply a transaction. It should be about opening a new relationship that you will continue to nurture, to build, to nurse if there's a problem, so that you, the seller, and your customer continue to benefit from this relationship. Now, I conclude with 3 practice questions. The first one is, what do you consider your privileged moment and when does it happen? Number 2, given you now know something about a sales process, tell me, how will you handle rejection? Number 3, what actions are you going to take in your department with the information we have now shared over the last 3 weeks? I want to conclude this session with thanking the following authors. They've been really good to me over the years. The first one is Neil Ruckman with his spin selling material. I was first exposed to this material in 2008, and I continue to mine the new traces of gold in all my teaching from this material. The second one is Robert Cialdini with his 2 great books. One is called Influence. Another recent one, like 2-3 years ago, that he wrote is called Persuasion. In other words, that you can persuade people before you persuade them. It's a beautiful illustration. You must prepare their mind before they accept you. These 2 books of Cialdini have been great for me since 2017. And then Gordon MacDonald, whose timeless little book called Ordering Your Private World has been a real treasure in self-discovery for young people when I'm teaching. Next week, we will introduce customer service as requested by our HR department. God bless you all. Bye-bye.